Okay, let's see here. Gonna stream some game development. Okay, so here's what we're doing. I gotta turn down my music a little bit. Kind of distracting. Okay. So, this is what Masteroid used to look like, or currently looks like, actually. So, this is the UI. Um, Basically, it's all just colored boxes. There's not really many sprites other than these weapon sprites. And I didn't really put any design thought into this. I kind of just, it was basically prototype art that is just what shipped in the current version of the game because I'm just starting to overhaul UI now. So on the right is my Photoshop mockup. On the left is an application called Gum, which is it's sort of platform agnostic, cross-platform. Its output, I think, is just XML. But the main runtime, or the best runtime, is probably for the flat red ball engine, which is what Masteroid uses. So that is what we're going to be building all of this stuff in. So I made some progress yesterday on this frame. And I think the next thing I need to do is make these little blurbs down here. And my main problem is I've been kind of torn on how to do it. So I created the sprites. This is my sprite sheet. So basically all the sprites in the whole game are on this sheet. And most of the sprites for UI, there's fonts are packed there, sprite fonts, and logos and stuff like that here. So I made this blurb frame, which will be expandable if I use it. I just don't know if blurbs will ever be larger than design in the mock. Let's go ahead and try them as an expandable and see what happens. So let's do, actually, so what am I doing? I kind of have my own naming convention going here where I try to name things starting with what they are. That way buttons are grouped together, panels are grouped together. So I already have a bunch of 9 patches. 9 patch just means that it can be divided into 9 pieces so that it can stretch. The corners don't stretch and all the middle pieces do. And so that's basically what we're using here. So we're going to use our okay, so our top left pixel in Photoshop is 1536/320. Okay, so that's looking right, and then the width and height are obviously wrong. So we're at 192. Okay, now this is not displaying correctly because um, it's, I think because it's not big enough. So we'll make the parent 300 by 300. 9's patch alignment is going to be 100%. And now we have, if you can see the red and yellow lines, you can see the corners versus the stretchable middle parts. In this case, the middle piece is just transparent. So I think that works. And now, what do I call these? I think I'll just call it a blurb. So these are 318 by 137. Let's call it 320 by 135. I'll try that to start. 320 by, what did I say that was? 135. Okay, and then we're going to set this to be relative to container. 0 pixels relative to container basically means that it's always going to be the same size as its container. We've got our outline. We have a sprite for the icon. So 32 by 32 and 1216 320. I think I got something wrong here. So 16. Oh, I have not saved the sprite sheet since I created these icons. That's why I'm getting an empty sprite. There we go. So I want this to be in, I think it's, should be like 64 maybe. Oops, no, this should be, okay. Got subheader text. Call this blur, oh whoops, blurb title, not subtitle. Some more reasonable length. Give it title that we we can kind of see how that looks. We want this to be I may have made this sprite the wrong color. We can fix that in a second. Okay, we got that, and we need a button in here. Oh, that's not going to be, we need this to be like 16. It's just about perfect. I don't know if my, it's kind of a test because I just got a new computer recently, and now my processor can encode fast enough, but I'm not sure if my internet is fast enough to actually deliver the stream without being super choppy. So maybe let me know in chat if it's really sucking and I can turn down the settings a little bit. So this component is not stretchy. Like I kind of have hard coded the sizes. Like I could make, if I wanted to, I could base the entire size of this blurb on the amount of text content, but that's actually a constant problem in HTML when you do stuff. It's like really hard to make things horizontally like or vertical, same vertical heights. So this I think is probably going to be better if I make the height fixed and then just when writing content make sure that it doesn't overflow the blurb boxes. Okay, so now that we have those built, we can see how they fit in our real actual UI here. So let's drag one in and Actually, what I'm gonna do is let's put these in a container. I'm gonna call this blurb container. Put the blurb in that, and then this blurb container I want to be a left to right stack. And it's going to be basically relative to container. No. Oh yeah. And this is probably -30. That's gonna probably actually the left. Oh, here we go. Okay, so that actually needs to be -20. Height we'll do relative to children. Just make it wrap the blurbs that we got. And this stuff we probably want to be pixels from bottom. Make the Y origin the bottom. And let's try like negative, I don't know, 100 to start. I just about nailed that. Let's make it a little closer, so like -75. More, let's go. Make this, let's call this blurb 1. Call this blurb 2, and let's see. Actually, I don't know if I want a container. I might want to. I think I actually want to make this center X and center. Let's bring those. Oh, that didn't work. Well, let me drag the first one. That's fine. Just delete this container. And then we'll make this. The reason I'm doing this is I don't know if the blurbs are exactly 1/3 of the width of this each. They're not. So they will be more cleanly laid out if I left align 1, right align 1, and center align 1. Then no matter if they're exactly 1/3, they'll always have the right amount of like padding between them to split the difference. Pixels from bottom. Oops. What did I do? X origin, center. Now let's see. Okay. So that fits. I wasn't totally sure if these blurbs would fit underneath of this in practice. Like things never work out quite pixel perfect. For one thing, I built this, I think, for 1920 resolution, but I'm simulating this at or this 1080, this is 1050, so I lost 30 pixels. So basically my probably about the minimum game resolution I want to target is 1680 by 1050. Right now the game plays smaller than that, but I just don't know if it's realistic to try to build for like crazy small resolutions like 1024 by 768. This is, it should probably be negative 10. And I can make this thing a little wider. So size, nope. So one other thing I need to fix, I want text to always be centered. So the way I built it was kind of stupid. I think probably what I want to do, this is the subheader. Probably want to expose the alignment on the text. If I go to button standard, okay, so now if I change this to vertical, boom, we get centered. And if I go back to this panel, now the word undock is centered. We're looking a little closer to our UI. Man, there's so much code I'm going to have to write to make this actually work, like stuff to change all these icons out. Trying to think about how I want to do that. I could do states on the blurb boxes. These are the only ones I have designed right now, and I have all the icons. Gamedev goes way faster if you already know exactly how you're going to solve all the problems that you're going to solve. So let's add a new category called icon. We're going to add a state called wrench, which is basically the default. We'll add a state called chevron. And that is going to set the blurb icon texture address. Let's see, chevron we're on, which is at 1280. Okay. Let's call this. Now the only problem is I'm gonna have to change that icon. I'm gonna actually rename that to currency because I'm not gonna use the dollar icon in the game. This icon's gonna change. I don't want it to use dollars as the game currency. In this mockup, I have this generic currency symbol, which I think the ASCII definition of this is actually generic currency symbol. I'm using dollars in a few places. I don't really, that symbol's not that interesting. I thought about using the Bitcoin symbol. I want something that looks cool, but isn't necessarily tied to like US dollars. So either way, we can lay this out quickly and then, or for now, and then I'll just change it in the sprite sheet later. Cool, and then we're gonna want to expose. Call that blurb display text. I suppose this is blurb button text. And we're going to expose this as blurb title text. So now these should be pretty customizable. So if we go into our station panel, these blurbs are always going to be pretty much the same. Oh, that's interesting. The content will change, the text content, but even the button text will be pretty much the same, except sell cargo is actually, and repair is actually going to have, well, one thing at a time. Blurb 1. So this one we need the chevron icon state. The title text is faction. Okay, so there's another problem. Our blurb title is too short. There we go, faction mission status. This is 100%. I think my blurbs in UI are a little bit shorter vertically, but overall, like, we're pretty close to the design. I just want somewhat. Oh, haha, whoops. Okay, so. Oh, wrong text type. This is supposed to be text italic. Let's see if that works without breaking a bunch of stuff. Bam, look at that. I still think blurb should maybe be a tiny bit taller. Let's get the rest of them wired up, and then if we need to make them a little bit taller, we can. They'll just grow, since I anchored them to the bottom, they'll grow vertically as long as we don't crowd this banner too much will be good. And actually, I could tighten this component up a little bit. If I tighten that up 320, I must go 315. That's about as tight as I want to do that, or it'll be getting too much. Banner stats, there we go. And then we need to make this the heck is not 10 pixels from top. There we go. I was like, what the heck? So, oops, what did I do? Subtract 100? There, that gives us a little bit more room. That lorem ipsum running over is annoying. So I'm just putting stuff in here. Okay, let's make these a little taller. 135, let's go 145. Then the button basically needs to move down. So let's do pixels from bottom. Make that like 10. Oh, negative 10. So what the heck? Make that apparently 5. Yep. Give ourselves a little bit more text room here. Actually, see how that looks. That looks a little better. Ooh, and we still have plenty of room there. Oh. I just saw that Dominic is actually trolling me in chat. Sorry, dude, I wasn't paying attention. A like and a sub. That'll be the day. If I was a YouTube streamer, I'd probably be super miserable. Does not look like a fun thing to do. Okay. Let's see how that looks. Not too bad. Wow, my voice didn't work at all. Not too bad. Alright, the undock button feels too tight. Dominic says he's banging his head against the wall with art. Are you struggling with animation chains or something? Is it like the art part of it or getting the animation editor to work as you expect? Okay, this is starting to look pretty good. I'm gonna bump these up just a little bit. That is a little tight. I think that's good. 100. Sometimes this does not refresh the values in the UI. Okay, so we're pretty close. The reason there's this big red X here is that is the faction icon, and that's set at runtime. Everything in here will be set by the inner menu, so weapons, ships, and equipment will have their own menu, and then there will be a state here that will choose which of those menus is showing, and that's already how the old menu works. So here's the existing menu. Fonts are all screwed up because I swapped out all the fonts, sprite fonts, so but this is how these states work. So it's switching the tab and the menu here. So I'm going to do the same thing on the redesigned one. It's doing a slash animation. Dude, there's this guy that I follow on Twitter that's like the most amazing pixel artist. Let me find him. I'll pull him up here. He does all these little GIFs that show basically his pixel style, and they're so amazing. Here we go. Saint 11. This dude. This guy's pixel art tutorials are so good. He has a Patreon page, or however you say that. I was just going to see if there's a quick link to one in his feed. He's been doing some different stuff. He's working on a different game now, but like, oh, this is how they are. This is super delayed for some reason. Anyway, yeah, Saint 11 on Twitter. Like, this guy's amazing, and he has tons of super good pixel art tutorials about like subpixel movement and all these crazy techniques. I don't know what his Patreon page is, but anyway, he's super good. If you don't already follow him on Twitter, you totally should. Let's see. It doesn't have. Oh, here's his Patreon. Yeah, so like this guy's Patreon page is full of pixel art tutorials and amazing like pixel art examples and like tons of stuff. Anyway, you said you were doing a slash animation, and one of his tutorials that I've seen him post is about attack animations and exactly how to draw like the motion blur and all this stuff. He's super good. So anyway, I don't know that dude like at all. So if he it'd be funny if like for some reason he happened to watch this and was like, "Oh, that's me." I'm sure he gets tons and tons of links because he's super amazing, and I think he's full-time game industry artist. Okay, so we need to create a new category. Let's call this tab. I'm just going to call it tab. I think in code it'll be called tab category state, which is a good name if I just name it tab. So I'll call this weapons. That's the ships. Oh, Dominic says link in chat. Yeah, clearly I'm not a streamer since I don't do stuff like that. There you go. That's his Twitter. His name is Pedro Medeiros. Pedro Medeiros, I assume. I just follow him on Twitter. I don't know this guy or anything, but his work is super good. Okay, so in my weapons state, I want the weapons button to be I don't know if I actually want to use a forms button for these or not. I think these panel buttons I don't want to use, so they have a button category. But I'm mapping their display to the button category, but that's not actually. What would this look like? I have an idea. Call this normal. Now the question is whether to make the other category deselected or selected. I think I want to name it deselected because typically when I'm using this button, I want the background to show. And what I'm going to do when it's deselected, or is I'm going to hide this. And the button text, I'll just override its color as well. I don't totally, that might get really buggy, so I'll just have to see how that happens. So now if I'm on weapons, weapons tab, display category should be normal. Ships display category should be deselected. And equipment category, display category should be deselected. On ships, weapons should be deselected. Ships should be normal. Equipment should be deselected. And on equipment, should be normal. Ships should be deselected. and weapons should be deselected. Now if I did that right, weapons, ships, equipment. So I've got states, and then when I finish building the menus, I will also set those up to states. So the next thing to do is probably build a list box. Problem is I have a wicked like sinus headache thing going on, so I'm trying to decide if I want to keep doing this or I think I am gonna go ahead and push a commit of these changes. I'm not going to check in my PSD yet, but states on my buttons, yeah, they're probably going to break. Okay, added blur component and tab states to panel station. Show those up. Okay, well, if Vic is actively watching the stream, I didn't realize he was, I might go ahead and do something that's might break, because that's going to be easy to see then if I just do it on the stream. That way if we need to do some debugging on a lot of this stuff that I'm using in GUM is some brand new parts of Flat Red Ball, like super brand new, and so I will probably break some stuff, but that's kind of the point, is break it so we can improve it and make it better. So time to go find ourselves some documentation on how to do this. Whoa. Somebody moved some furniture upstairs and it was super loud. BI, Flat Red Ball forms. Let's bring this over here. Let's see here. I don't remember exactly where this was, but basically list box is the next thing we want to do. By the way, is the stream smooth, guys? So this is exactly what we want to build. This shows the code part. Somewhere there's a tutorial that shows how to do complex components. And tutorial section. Tutorials. Ah, okay. I see this is moved to tutorials. Cool. Okay. Complex controls, what we're doing. I think it's kind of the same. Text box. Okay. This is roughly, this is what we want. Let's throw this here. Okay, so what we're going to do is, before when I did list boxes, I did them myself and they suck. This is kind of what they look like. Again, I changed all the sprite fonts, so the fonts are all jacked, but I did these by myself. I mean, I did them completely custom, and a lot of things about them don't work very well. They don't have any scroll bars. But I'm trying to think, before I did one for each different kind of list that I had, list for weapons, list for turrets, list for ships, list for resolution in the settings menu. I think I want to try to make one list box to rule them all. And one line item or maybe two line items, one line item that's just text and one line item that has an icon, because the both ships and weapons menus start with an icon. But other than that, every single line item is just a list of text boxes. So if I put all of the text in a horizontal stack container, then I should be able to put 0 or 10 in there and they just nicely stack out. So let's try that. So we're going to just call this component list box. I don't know if that's a reserved word, if that'll break something, but we're going to add I don't see a list box behavior. It's exactly what I want, though. I might need to pull a forms update. By the way, Gum can be downloaded as a standalone, like executable or whatever binaries. I happen to be building it from source, but that's not required. I'm building it from source because I'm testing a lot of pretty bleeding edge stuff, and that makes it a lot easier to debug. So just asking a couple questions here. I do not have glue running. Just a second. Okay, so basically, because I originally built this super early, I need to do one other step here. I'm running all of the flat red ball tools from source, so there's going to be a ton of different Visual Studio stuff running, but so there's a tab for Gum project properties. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and shut down Gum. I just checked in. I like to check in kind of frequently just because I am running like pretty like daily build or latest commit kind of thing. So so I don't have to worry too much about breaking stuff or like running my project file. Select the go. Yeah. Regenerate all behaviors. Okay, so I think I just need to do this. Scroll box, scroll viewer behavior. list box item behavior. I think that is exactly what I needed. Let's rebuild or run gum again. And in our components, if I go to my newly created list box and behaviors, look at that, list box item behavior. Cool, so now I have a bunch of stuff that's I'm gonna need to create, which this should tell me how to do. Select the newly created. Okay, so errors. I feel like I should have a bunch of errors. Let me just try, I'm gonna retry this process. Yep, we can wipe that. Call it. I'm gonna call it something different, just yeah, still no errors, so that might be I'm gonna delete that again and just pull the latest gum just to make sure that it's not something. Like I said, I'm running pretty latest build stuff, so I'm gonna actually close that. I think there's only one update though for probably didn't need to close Visual Studio. Visual Studio used to crash super hard. Whatever. I don't need that running. That'll probably cause me more problems than it's worth, actually. Okay, well, it should probably be showing me errors. Like I said, I am running stuff that has not really been tested in production yet. What could go wrong? But we should be able to figure out the names of the components that we need in here. And actually, before I create a list box, I may have to create a scroll box. This is the page I actually need. So first I do need to create a scroll bar. Okay. So let's go ahead and as we'll pull up that tutorial as well. Button instance, down button instance. Okay, so I need to create a scroll button, then a scroll bar, and yeah, I need a scroll bar. Okay, so it looks like the cool thing about GUM is you build one item and then you can layer complex UI out of it. So for instance, I built a slider a long time ago, and again, UI is all screwed up because I broke my sprite fonts. But then like my sector settings menu is this super complex like collection of sliders and input boxes. So once you build a component, you can reuse it everywhere. But when you're building complex things, you have to kind of start from the basic component. So the first thing that I'm going to need for a scroll bar is an arrow button and this, whatever you call this middle button. I'd probably call that scroll arrow button and scroller button, I guess. Except I name everything with the word first. So button standard. I need to do a button scroll arrow. And this is going to have button behavior. So yeah, like this is going to take me a little while to get all these pieces in place, but once I do it once, that's all I have to do. So the first thing this needs is, I think I could do a 9-patch panel in this. We'll try it. It may be too big. It may get screwy because I want my scroll bars to be pretty small. So let's make these. Close that so it stops popping up. So let me see. How big did I spec these at? 25, about 26 by 26. That's a little small. I guess it's not small for keyboard UI. It's kind of small for controller-based cursors, but but this isn't going to work touchscreen anyway because it's way too dense and too big. So let's make this. Let's start it at 25 by 25 and see what happens. Well, actually, we can decide that in the. Yeah, sure, whatever, 25 by 25. Okay, well, it looks like my 9-patch managed to work somehow. I think. Let's make it 32. Okay, and then we're going to need a sprite. And this is going to be. That all centered properly now. Okay, so okay. 1360-320. Okay, there is my One thing I don't know if GUM actually can handle is rotation and flipping of sprites, so I may need to I'm just going to do that. I mean, it takes up like such a tiny amount of pixels in the sprite sheet that it's really like a non-issue. Normal is up, but it's nice to just have a normal and an up state just in case. I could just have an up and a down. Let's just do up and down. Okay, so up and down. We want the arrow sprite to be 336. Or not. Oh yeah, actually that's right. It's just I have not spit this out. I may not do this too much longer because my head is killing me right now. I have a wicked headache. Okay, so up and down. So I've got my button scroll arrow. I'll worry about, let's go ahead and give this, make the default on this. Colorize as white. Enabled is fine, disabled, actually, I can change the colors of this later. Okay, I am going to stop there because I have a terrible headache. So I'm going to shut down and commit my changes. Thanks for watching. And see you next time.